Welcome back, audience. Hope you're doing good, as always. Cheers. Having some tea. And today, I want to talk about the instruments of consciousness to sort of very clearly define different faculties or instruments that are available to handle each situations of life. And this particular, topic we're talking about, which is alchemy or like the spirit, the real spirit, real spirituality, cannot be touched by the mind or the brain, which is not the same thing. And so whenever someone is trying to touch that, so to speak, with the mind or the brain, the process of thinking or the process of image creation, it will never happen. Because you're using a wrong instrument for that particular problem. Okay? And so you can see that happening a lot. People are perpetuating in words or images and relying upon them for their spirituality. And for example, watching a spiritual video or whatever, right? Or this or that. All of that is a trap, and none of it really helps or works. So the videos that I'm making is basically the end of suffering, because this video is an invitation for you to book a session so I could show it to you. And the reason I can show it to you, because I've been found so many pathways to the same thing, to the same faculty so many times, that anybody who is with me trying to begin using that faculty of the soul, I always see exactly where they're at, because I can not only can see them, I can feel them. I know exactly what they are, what they're doing with their mind and things like that. And I can guide you to that faculty. You see, the paradox is that it's always there for us to use, but we're sort of conditioned out of using it. This is why, when the Krishnamurti was teaching us, and people were like, "Oh, what do we do with this interesting thought thinking? I don't know if I can do it." It's like they're still, using the faculty of the mind, which is the image creation, or the faculty of the brain, which is a language creation, a syntax creation, to touch the source of everything. And it will never going to happen. Okay? So if you can see that, at least you can see, well, that's not going to help me. This is not going to help me. So you could at least at that point just say no on this and no that. So I'm not going to watch any of these pacification videos anymore. These false philosophers and these false prophets and all of that spiritual crap. Spirit has nothing to do with image creation or language creation, which is the only thing that you get from these videos, with the exception of a few videos who are actually doing the same thing and inviting you to that faculty of your consciousness that is capable of dissolving that disorder, that angst, that fragmentation out of which all of this seeking stems from. Okay? So it's an invitation to use the instrument of consciousness. I call it soul. It has a capacity to have a complete and total and undivided attention. And attention means that the attention is placed onto something that is not a background. It's some sort of foreground. So when you have a complete and total and divided attention onto something that is at the root cause of everything, and that is usually pain or pressure, feeling within you, out of which the fear arises, out of which all this the depression arises. Everything arises from that. And you have pain or pressure, which is like the expanding or contracting, and there's a restriction for the expansion or restriction for the contraction. And so therefore, for the expansion, you need to learn that surrender and open the aperture. Breathe with, the pulse of life, as I call it. It's not a breath yet. This is the heart of consciousness. And it wants to expand and contract. And so we have to place our attention at the source of that. And you can find it, and once you find that source, because the mind may already interpret it, you can see how it all working. At the source, there's this disorganized vibration that is not organized, right? And it's vibrating disorganized way. And because it's vibrating in disorganized way, the mind takes that, interprets it, and then creates like disorganized images. This is something that you don't want, right? And the same thing with the thinking process, the thought process, which is uses that and starts creating the syntax, the code, which is, you have to note one thing, that your computing processing unit, your brain, is what sometimes we call thinking, doesn't even generate images. It just generates symbols, numbers, things. That's all it does. And so you can imagine that a lot of people are functioning at this level, and it's talking about spirituality, but there's no changes at all at the core level. It's complete vanity based. Because why is it vanity based? Because that source, that disorganized source, anything that's going to create is going to be vanity based. Virtue arises only upon the solution of that. Okay? So we have to use the faculty that is not a thought and not an image maker, not a GPU and not a CPU. And if most people, all their life, they've been using this and they never use the other faculty. So you can understand how, skeptical or even wary someone may be to step out of the mode of image creation and syntax creation. And so that could be a lot of fear to do that. But once it is done, once you place that attention on the source of that disorder, which requires the courage, and then the background of everything, which requires surrender, now you are using the faculty of your soul. The soul has two sides. It has the capacity to delete that pattern. At this point, we're talking about patterns. And these patterns are feelings. They have not gone into the images yet, or the syntax. So you go and you place your attention on the source of it. And sometimes if somebody is working in a thought process, I could guide the person out of the thought process, then it would go in the emotional process, and then out of the emotional process it would be in the feeling. And then only then there will be a realization. It's like, oh my God, there's a lot of pain here. And now you place your attention on that pain, and you go into it and complete and divided attention on the thing that you call pain. And then when you completely disconnect from the mind, which is, we can call this process of unlabeling, because mind has been labeling that pattern as something, and that became a painful thing, but it was not real. So now when you remove that label, that pain may become, in that process when it's happening, you don't use your mind. So you just place your attention and connect it to the background. And as I'm doing right now, I can feel it because we're going through one of those chemical challenges. And there is this attention that is required to remain there. And between that attention and awareness, like I said, there's a focus and broadening, just like an aperture of your camera. That's all you can do at this point. But at least you are attentive of that source. And as soon as you're attentive of that source of causes that irregularity, that disorder, there's the silence that is commencing. And so you have to remain the attentive of it until the attention merges with the background, which is awareness, and becomes the observer, and observer become one. And when that happens, there's like a complete, intense stillness. In which, in this case, that source, that knot, feels like a warm glow to me. And it does require a certain openness there. You see, that surrender. And as soon as, if I have the attention there, and little by little, like I open, it decodes it. It starts unweaving it back into the source, back into the fabric continuity, into this pure ether. And the reason there's a disorder is because there's, a labeling or some distortion towards the incoherence. And so what we're doing here is we're trying to return to the coherence, which is complete balance between all these four elements, which is what happens is in a toroidal field, there's a complete coherent flow of energies. Okay? And particles where the particles supposed to be, and waves where waves supposed to be. It's a complete coherent state. It's a reciprocating toroidal field. I mean, you can Google it to see, and you see that there is like a perfect web, and these interfering patterns create that perfect resonating ball. And that is when your consciousness is in a state of coherence. This is what we're trying to get at the core level. Until that is there, everything that you'll do is going to have that error encoded in it. You understand? You said it was not worth it because you're going to do everything perfect. And if you did it from incoherence, it's going to fall flat somehow. You see? So, and if it falls flat, then it brings your attention back to it. Okay? Which is okay, that's a learning process. But I'm just describing what is the point of it. Because eventually you can acquire this complete coherence there. To add a little more, for example, because that feeling may be a feeling of pain, sometimes we call it like a poison, pressure, numbness. For example, lately, right now, it's about numbness. There's this feeling of numbness that blocks you out from the world of feelings, it seems, right? It's like this numbness. You know what I'm trying to say. But when you place your attention there on that numbness, it starts sort of feeling warm and starts glowing. Then you play with it. You that's a surrender. Like it's the deepest surrender at the heart level. And it's a thing that worth learning. The courage and surrender. I call those. It's a faculty of your soul. Right, and that's what I really show to people. It's not really a teaching. You can call it a teaching, but it's not really. But I want to show people that they have that capacity to address any kind of disorder within them, which is not really your disorder or my disorder. It's just a disorder of space time within where we are. This is why there's no such thing as your ego, my ego. There's only one ego. Okay? And we go through life and we encounter that, and it just pops up as that background feeling of numbness in this particular case. It could be also confusion and things of the sort. To explain to you, like, the elements is basically whenever the consciousness or the toroidal field of energy is moving, for example, from the center up. At the beginning it's fire, then earth, then air, and then water. And it depends on the phase, the point of phase of movement of consciousness. But this particular movement is like this. It's not spiral yet. It is just going down and doing like this, right? But as it's doing like this, as is the toroidal field doing like that, it also, there's a movement there that it's a spiraling, right? And it's a vortex from the center into the outer, and then from the center into the outer. There's a spiraling, and that spiraling is time. And when time enters your experience, then you start experiencing these things called emotions. This is why I don't classify these, because from pain there could be anger stemming and fear, right? That is an experience of pain in time. Okay, and that's why I experience the fear. And then you can go, further up in time, and then it would be anxiety or some sort of frustration or aggravation. You see what I'm trying to say? And then you go into the world of emotions. At this particular point, we actually want to go into the world of feelings through the emotions. Because the fear may be there, for example, maybe if I'm guiding you to go to the source, there might be, maybe there's that fear, right? Or, or some like anticipation. It doesn't have to be fear, because if you're like positively approaching this with sufficient courage, it's not going to be fear. It's going to, well, it's like when jumping out of the airplane, if you're ready to do this and you already decided to do it, then it's adrenaline and excitement. And that's okay. It's normal. But then we want to go through it and to find that source of it. And it's like I said, it's usually pain or pressure. And so for the sake of this video, you will always find the pain and pressure at the source of it. And there's going to be a permutation of pain or permutation of pressure. Like numbness is a permutation of pressure. Okay, and then you can investigate what kind of, through your own experience, not reading it in a book, but what you're feeling. And I feel there's a sort of pain which is not really a pain. It's like I call it poison. I don't know. I don't have a better word for it, but it's not pure pain. It is a permutation of pain. Still feeling, but it is a different form of feeling. And I'm investigating those and basically trying to, through my experience of these feelings, and trying to see how they work within consciousness, what's actually going on, as as what kind of movement it's taking place, so that could be more accurate as much as possible with the feelings, and differentiate feelings and emotions on a deep, scientific level, that they're actually factually different, not just mislabeled. So we're at the source right now. There's nothing you can do. Your mind will always try to, like, let's do something about it. Like, oh, we can't be. No. The heart, the soul has the capacity to place your attention there and do nothing. That very attention, if you put it fully, is going to start burning it through. And it's not like you're not, doing anything. You are gathering all of your attention and placing where it needs to be. And then you play there and you keep on unlabeling or whatever the word you want to use, but it feels like it's eroding because you have that complete undivided attention on it. And of course, you are aware of the background. So there's this attention and awareness. And in between, there is this resolution of it. It is it's super deep. It's very, very deep. And to be able to remain at that faculty of your soul that controls attention and awareness is the really only challenge. Okay. And then, but then you already have the understanding that you have come across something at the source, and that where everything is stemming from, and you feel that, like again, you label as pain primarily, but when you go into it, you realize that it's not pain. It's sort of like magical, blissful energy. That spirit. You see, the spirit is that thing that most people are running away from, that pain. That's why it requires courage, and it doesn't let anybody in. That only lets people who have sufficient courage and surrender, which means that you have to be able to put all of your attention on it undividedly. That's your courage. And then become a complete and total background for it. That's your surrender. This openness, this deep surrender, that expanding. And so there's that. You will always going to have just that. And it may take time. You may need to stare at it for, like I'm used to moving throughout my day and remaining aware of it. And sometimes it's super intense and there's nothing to do but just to become attentive, aware of it. And and sort of almost like a digesting process that's taking place there, right? You're eating something up. You're in decrypting, if you like, because you can take many views of consciousness. I little by little tend to gravitate towards the cybernetic view of consciousness. Like, this is why I'm calling it, GPU, CPU, and QPU. The QPU is this faculty that you can use to erode the source of all the problems. That's where the actual real ego is. Okay. And because you don't want to create anything from the ego. And if you do it correctly, you're going to see, okay, but it's not like you can avoid it. You live life and it arises. You also rid of all sorts of like being stuck in it by blaming yourself or blaming others. You realize, like, oh no, this is just the field of ego. And if somebody's just like got into the field of ego, okay, that's where they're at right now. Okay, they just got lost in the field of ego. But you don't follow them. You stay where you're at and you keep on alchemizing it. Okay, but that doesn't mean that the person cannot get out of it sometime in the future and whatnot, right? The fact of the matter that some people do remain on their golden throne and others don't. And some people need to rely on the people who remain on the golden throne, because some people don't yet have the capacity for the alchemy, or maybe they won't in this lifetime. They need to have a friend who does and understand what kind of role they're playing in your life. You see, if people talking about like gurus and devotees, and they create this sort of like this unnatural dynamic of some people that they don't even know, some old fart, and then there's these people who are supposed to be completely in love with this guru thing. It's ridiculous. You can live your life, normal life, and then this becomes a natural dynamic between your friend circle or even family circle. You already have these people around you. You orient yourself exactly where you are. Okay, this is where I am. Don't try to jump above your navel. This is where I am. Okay. Um, that person seems to be able to do this, and they seems to always come out on top, and they seem to be able to alchemize this thing. So maybe I'll keep that person as a friend, you know, and see if I can learn to do the same thing. This is natural. This is already happening. You don't have to create all these sects and cults out of it. Your life is already happening. It's already tailored specifically and perfectly for you to be in the process of learning. And yes, it's not easy right now, but at the same time, you may not have any other way. And a lot of people do tell me this, like, it feels like I can't go this way, can't go this, I don't know where to go anymore. Through the eye of a needle, that's where you go. Okay, so we're talking about this faculty of SQPU, but there's another side of it. When you alchemize all that, because it has the capacity to dissolve or destroy, then it has the capacity to weave something harmoniously back. And that is where you go into the breath of life and these brilliant feelings, some of these people call inspiration, that comes from your soul. And these are amazing, alive, harmonious, melody-like feelings that are running through your system. That's a creative force itself. It is the pattern. Out of this, you can create any kind of art. Because that you see what I'm trying to say? Anything going to create out of that energy that is right now with you upon, alchemizing and doing the theurgy. That's the theurgy part. The alchemy part is to dissolve it. The theurgy part is now to take that free energy of bliss and peace and start folding it in perfect way, because you have that coherence frame at that point. That's why you're experiencing that peaceful bliss. That's coherence. Any kind of creative process is going to stem from your soul, which is the emergence of the feelings like joy, enjoyment. It is unbelievable. It's like a dance and a melody and a music of feelings that are happening within you. I'm just exploring this world right now because there's so much work on the alchemy, and whatever time I have left, or I play with that and I see what I can do, what else my soul can do out of that coherence. And it appears that it can also weave those patterns together. My soul seemed to have a capacity to create these primordial feelings. They really actually real coherent emotions. And so it takes from the infinite and puts it into time. It takes that infinite coherence field, the peace, bliss, that fabric, and starts folding it. But when it folds, because it comes from the perfect lattice of coherence, it cannot make a mistake. It will fold it perfectly. You understand? And when you have that melody flowing through, and like as an inspiration, it can turn into any kind of now you need the image creator to create something, and it may be whatever piece of art that you want to create. Okay? And so that's the true creativity. That melody must be imbued into what you're creating. Okay? That's real art. That's real art. And that type of art will begin to touch people, so to speak, and through that type of art, they also will connect to the similar feelings that you have encoded or emotions. Okay? This is why a lot of times when people are creating art, whatever it may be, it is not about the pixels, moving pixels, images, and sounds and words, right? It's not about that. Because you really asked it, like, what consists of good movie and bad movie, and it's not even that one who was most, promoted the most. Not even that one that was programmed for people to believe that it's there. Not even that one that has the most booty and fast cars in it. You see, it's the one that had imbued those feelings that the creators had when it was creating that particular piece of art. Okay? So again, in my book, unless artist has this capacity, this faculty, it's not an artist. It's a hack, an imitator, and it's creating something abominable. Okay? All right, I'm glad we got that out of the way. What else I have to say? So there's the side of alchemy, the side of theurgy. Um, and that creative side of the theurgy is quite interesting because, I mean, I can talk a lot about it because I'm just exploring it, but it seems that it has less spontaneous capacity. But it's not just spontaneous capacity, it also requires your directed attention. It's not this attention that we just did for the alchemy, which was just a complete and total attention. It is a directed attention, which is a type of intention. And so now you can have an intention of moving the energy, if you will. And when you move that energy, you also, like, how are you going to move it? You have to move it musically. And so it's a type of intention and allowance of it to happen. It's another, it's completely another side of the soul that has the capacity. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that your soul has the capacity to erode the bad code and weave the rainbow, so to speak. It actually is the rainbow because it does feel like a rainbow and unicorns. And so it has this capacity to weave that energy. Okay? And that's where we're at right now. And this is what it's supposed to be the most attention placed. And so no more of these videos that just makes you feel worse than it's going in the wrong direction. If the video is taking your attention away from it, you are not in the process of dissolving it. You understand? And so if the video does that to you, don't watch it. This is why it's so important, like I said, the external discipline, internal alchemy. Without external discipline, alchemy will not happen, because as long as you're distracting yourself from it, you may not be even aware of it. Does that make sense? And then you're on the outskirts and it's like, well, how do I get this? Like, what kind of technique do I use? How do I get this? It's like, no. Whatever you do is not going to work. But how do I get this? It's like, no. There's this source out of which everything stems from. This is why you're having a problem. Address the source. Most of the problems are going to go away. And then you're going to be able to use your image creator and a syntax creator to arrange your life in the way you want. and play the game of life correctly. Okay, and I'll make another video talking about more about this QPU and CPU, the image creation and things like that. But I just wanted to say that you do have the instrument that is not based on thought or the images, that is part of you, and it may be dormant and never been used before, or haven't been used in a while, or you see what I'm trying to say, but it's there. And so I'm going to keep on pointing to that, and I'm going to keep on inviting you to do this, because I do this every day. I go through life, these things arise, I alchemize them, turn into something amazing. I really then enjoy that theurgy process, playing around with it, because it's amazing. Then I'm trying to learn of how you turn it into art. But I'm happy that where I am. It's like I said, it is not easy, but there's nothing else you're here for. This alchemy thing is just why you're here. Only then after that, once you're no longer functioning from the ego, because that's dissolved, and it's impossible for you to function from the ego when you're in a peaceful bliss. Okay? You understand? And every time you dissolve that particular distortion, next time it's much easier to do so, or maybe you don't even need to do this, because it's decoded very quickly and automatically. And so then you don't have such thing as like yes, like when you socialize with other people, the alchemical challenge may arise, but then you start obviously realizing that that the person has a lot of this energy, and your job is to listen to them and be in the process of dissolving that at the source level. You're listening to them with your heart. And so until they sort of stop, because you have brought that energy to a lot of peace, they start feeling peaceful. Then when they start feeling peaceful, only then they could have the capacity also to go to that heart space, soul space. And that's your practice. Like, you want to be really good at it. And so it's a mutual benefit. You may say, well, you do this for other people. Like, if it touches you and if it comes into your life, then it is yours, so to speak, right? It's just another permutation for you to learn of how to alchemize. Because yeah, that's what it is. Just another permutation that you haven't yet addressed, that needs to be addressed. But when you get really good at it, that QPU, that quantum computing unit, the processing unit, or excuse me, quantum processing unit, becomes really good at processing it. And the other side, like I said, it's weaving. This is where like this ecstatic feelings may be going through your body, and you're engulfed in this rapturous ecstasy. I mean, these are very strong words. It can happen. Um, if process something big, something big can go through your system. Now, you see how it happened naturally as a consequence of your work of alchemy, and you did not seek that experience. See, the trick is that you're not looking for the reward. The second you're looking for the reward, you're not alchemizing. Because there's part of you now in a mode of seeking and saying, where is my reward? And it just creates so you have to be, it's none of your business. It is right now require complete and total, your attention is complete altruism is required of you to have a complete altruism in that particular moment. What is. This has to be it. And then the seeking stops. And what is beginning to be accepted. And most of the time, and if any problem you have, is because you don't give enough trust to the capacity of your attention and awareness to do this magical thing. It's usually because you're trying to add something that is not necessary. If you just trust that just pointing the laser, a powerful laser, onto something that you want to burn through is enough. Right? And if it's burning through and you're like, it hasn't burned through yet, let me move around. And as soon as you move around, okay, you just lost the power of that laser to go through that. And now you have to go back and remain there steady again. Okay? All right, so this is this faculty that we are learning. And my videos are always going to be about that. Unless you go through this, you cannot touch the spirit. Therefore, it is not spiritual. And if you go through this, you don't need anything outside of you. This is why, like, I'm kind of a usher, basically. Once I show it to you, mine can be persistent and it may take you like maybe a couple of sessions. For some people, they burn through and that's it, and they got it. I see what it is. Sometimes like the mind comes back and it's like, hey, I need some more calibration. But you don't need more than like 2 sessions. You see. But there's all sorts of people out there, and you may need more, but that's okay. But the point of it all is that you're not a repeated client for me. You see what I'm trying to say? I'm not interested in having a repeated clients in this particular. To end suffering and end seeking, it has to be learned that it happens instantly or not at all. It may take a little tweaking to get to that point, that instant release, but it happens instantly or not at all. Okay? And I mean, like, I'm very sensitive to these things, and I know when they come online. And right now we're going through something, something quite big. Not the biggest thing, but it's quite big. And it's still the only uh, the only player in town that is capable of handling that. Okay, and that's it. That's the instrument of consciousness. And if you want to book a session with me, book a session, and I'll make sure that we're going to corner your capacity for attention awareness to be placed exactly where it needs to be placed, and you're going to discover that part of you, pop on the other side, and from then on, know how to handle these things um, in your life. Okay? And they come and go, but that background is always there. Your attention is always there. You just need to use it. And then when your attention is always connected with the background, that's ether. That's your peaceful bliss. Then when it's connected, then you don't need to babysit it. The nuclear reactor is active. But it's not like now you're dividing that attention, because you don't want to divide that attention, because it makes no sense to you. Because why would you move away your attention away from something that is so delicious? So you remain there. Not that you cannot move away from it. You can. You just don't anymore. But every time the separation arises there, you immediately feel it like, whoa, there's a separation. You connect the attention back to your awareness. And unless a person is doing that, whatever they say is not going to have that effect. So be doers and users of consciousness, not just talkers about it. And so there you go. There's another invitation, guys, okay? Book a session. And it's definitely worth an investment, because it's such a the capacity. You don't need drugs, you don't need anything externally. You discover something that is so powerful and end suffering. Okay, so it's a pretty big deal. And of course, the ego is an insult to ego, that is so easy to to end it. But some people no longer interested in suffering and no longer interested in functioning from the ego. I, for one, I have no idea. Have no interest in functioning from the ego. Which, by the way, setting boundaries is not an ego. Like sometimes getting even emotional, it's not an ego. We have to understand that there's a natural body reactions. If you look at, for example, if you go and there's like a some sort of situation that evokes this bodily fear, it's normal. You see what I'm trying to say? Your bodily emotions remain, maybe even bodily anger, and somebody's kind of breaks into through your boundaries. If you got angry or assertive immediately, and you want to remove that threat, you do it. This has nothing to do with ego. Understand? So you can totally do the right thing and be. Sometimes you need to be forceful. Sometimes you need to be strict, and you don't need to apologize. This is not ego. If you see somebody causing damage, you stop them. If it's in your way, and if you feel like doing it, okay. External discipline that may create the turmoil inside of you. Alchemize it. Okay. This is how I'm talking about from the masculine perspective. This is how to be a man, and don't feel like this is an ego. of course, you will not feel like this is an ego thing, because if you are alchemizing, and if you are making sure that that disorder is taken care of, then all of your actions that's going to take are going to be insightful and right. And we live in all sorts of times. We used to live in times where, defending yourself and walking around with sword was a completely normal day-to-day activity. Does that mean that, like, if you're an alchemist, you're alchemizing, and you're going through life, and you're in this situation in life, does that mean that if you are killing somebody, that you acting from the ego? No. And that was one of the samurai code. The samurai code was all about that alchemy, all about the right action. They went a little bit too far with that stuff, but they were saying never kill, out of spite. It was a necessary thing. But it's not because you holding a grudge on the person. It was not because of the like, what you call it, rage or brutality or things like that, right? That's not it. But you don't become a wimp. It does not, just not functioning from the ego does not mean you're weak. It actually means you're very much stronger, because now you can calculate much better. You can use the intelligence much better, but you're still a functional member of society. And if it's required for you to defend yourself, your family, or your wealth, or whatever, you take that action, and you hit fast, hit hard. And don't apologize for this. And don't think that this is anything to do with ego. Okay? And I'm tired of people using this little gimmick every time I set my boundaries. Every time I say, what the fuck are you talking about? You're full of shit. Or whatever I want to say, if I feel like saying this. There's this, like pulling out like this swift, what did you call it, like a Swiss knife of possible options of throwing a rhetoric at you and to make you feel guilty for setting the boundary on some bullshit. Don't buy for this. Like, I'm not buying this anymore, because I can see through it. I know the game of the ego is blaming somebody who's moving from the soul to be an ego. You understand? The soul is very powerful. Soul sometimes can be very strict, very stern, very burning. That is not the ego. Soul is very powerful. And we live in this type of, world where ego is creating so many injustice, so many, starting from stealing the energy, because ego cannot survive if you cannot steal your energy. So it always has to somehow steal, deceive, lie, and do all sorts of tricks. And to me, this is why, like, why am I doing all this? Because I realized I cannot create my soul desires. I cannot have my dream life if I'm, in this field of ego. And what am I going to do? Like, micromanage the situation every time? Like, I can't. I have to eradicate the root source of it and keep going and see where that takes me. Because at least I want to get to the point where I could have people in my life understanding what it means to move from the heart so we could finally have a good time on this planet, and create things, and have a really authentic fun that does not stop and end with a disaster. And so this world of matrix or ego or whatever is just, I'm not blaming the people that were in my life that were sort of like taken by it. you know I cannot go there anymore, and this is why they're not part of my life. But I know that where they went, and it is um temporary, and it's not right. And because I prefer to have harmonious relationships in my life, and co-creation and playfulness, that's the only way that I know how that actually works. Nothing else works, because it's nothing to do with thinking or thoughts and techniques and how to approach it. And no, as long as there's this division in your heart, as long as something else besides peace and bliss in your heart, it is not going to happen. And so I declared war on the entire matrix, like that. Okay? And when I say matrix, it's not an idea. I know exactly what it is and how it feels and how it functions. I'm watching it and I'm dissolving it every single day. I know what it is. I know when it vibrates, and when it vibrates disorderly, if I let my mind, my image creator, to touch it, it starts creating dysfunctional images. If I let my syntax creator, my CPU, my brain touch it, it starts creating these stupid thoughts. I can see it. It's not an idea, it's not a concept, it is a consciousness phenomena. And I know how to disentangle it and dissolve it. And it's not easy. It's, like I said, it's one of the hardest things. But when there is no other way, you keep on doing it until it becomes a second nature. To get to that point, maybe, sort of long journey. But now, when at this point, I can become aware and attentive of that source of it very quickly if something distracted me from it. And I know where I am, and you see what I'm trying to say? Like, there's no insecurity about it. One more thing. Everything is in an image, in the world of images, and the world of syntaxes can be controlled. Can be telepathically controlled and mind controlled, and also this is what's going on right now. You think that, like, it's one of the things that, of course, people know, that the dark side of the government is super interested in controlling minds, because it's a government. It's basically control mind. That's what it means, right? By the way, the government's supposed to be little by little turning into the protectorate. The laws will start changing in the countries to resemble more of a protectorate, less of a government, gradually. Okay? And so these operatives right now, this clandestine operatives, if you will, they use these paranormal things to control the reality, are gonna be found out. They already are found out. Their ass is on fire already. And also, their operations is no longer working. It's because they do not have the energy that is required for them to continue their operations, because the energy that they used was this dark archon structure that through alchemy you are dissolving it. You understand? This is why you cannot win this war going into this mental warfare. Some people try to do that. You will never win it, because the source of energy is not addressed. You do not cut off the energy supply to this goblin. Okay? When you cut out the energy supply, then it's weak. Then you just set your intent, and it breaks because it has no energy anymore. But you got to win your golden throne before going into the silver throne. But you also have to go into the silver throne. Okay? And so all of this despair, what can we do? Government is controlling everything, is gonna win. The Matrix is like, we're so powerless, this goes out the window, and it's not true anymore. But only through alchemy can this be done. And at one point in the recent history, in the 1500s, this was done successfully by sufficient number of alchemists that created the Renaissance in Italy. Okay? It was very short-lived, but it was a bubble of awesomeness that came out. Okay? So it can be done, but it has to be, sufficient number of people who are living life at this particular edge. In some of the cyber folklore, if you will, these stories, and of course it's depicted differently, but like a Blade Runner or the Net Runner, different words for the alchemist. When you have the capacity to disentangle that web and to weave it back together, you are the Net Runner or alchemist. There's many names for it. Okay? I'm glad we agree. I think that's it. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. Peace, and I'll see you in the next one.